vehicles from as far as GMC Sierra trucks and Yukons. We want to welcome in our friend Ed Werder, NFL insider, Cowboys, ESPN for a long, long time. And he has covered the circus forever, which is fascinating to me. And the Cowboys host the Giants. And I'm going to throw this out to Ed, see what he may laugh. But back-to-back division games to start the year. Dallas is a 5.5-point favorite to even come close to going to the playoffs. Ed, is this basically must-win hosting the Giants this weekend?
Yeah. Hey, Bo. It's about as close as you can get in week 2. You consider how dominant the Cowboys have been against the Giants, how poorly the Giants have been just in general. Excuse me. Sorry. The Cowboys have won 8 straight games against the Giants. It's the second longest win streak in the history of the series. And Dak Prescott has not lost to the Giants since his rookie season in 2016. So pretty remarkable stretch of success the Cowboys have had against the Giants. And the Giants were one of the least impressive teams in all of the NFL in week 1. So, I think this is a must-win for the Cowboys when you consider that I think there have been 5 teams in recent years where they've started with 2 straight division games. And, Bo, no team has ever lost 2 division games the first 2 weeks of the season and made the playoffs.
Ooh. So
this is an important game for Dallas for sure.
So Dallas laying 5.5. It is in Arlington, and they'll be hosting the Giants. Giants fans are already calling for a QB change. Did you see some of that on social media, Ed?
Oh yeah, I mean, as well as Jackson Dart has played in the preseason, and given the upheaval they've had in New York, where they've basically changed out their entire quarterback room, and their other options are Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. It's natural that the fan base is going to, create some pressure on the organization to get the rookie quarterback, the guy they believe is a franchise quarterback when they traded back into the first round to acquire him. But the Giants have some, institutional issues that I think they have to resolve first, and it's in Dart's best interest to wait as long as possible to play. I mean, the Giants general manager, Joe Sheen, and the head coach, Brian Daboll, are both under pressure to win right now. And so, to me, the best way they can save their jobs is eventually to play Jackson Dart, for him to have success, and for them to be able to go to ownership pleading for their jobs yet again.
Right.
And say, look, you want us to be developing this quarterback. Look what Daboll did early in Josh Allen's career. So this is essential. But I just think the longer they wait, and it creates a better opportunity for him. And people used to say to Bill Parcells here, I distinctly remember, Bo, that, Drew Bledsoe was a starting quarterback. Parcells had brought him in because of his past history with him. Things weren't going well. The Cowboys were losing. They were falling out of contention. And people were like, well, why don't you play Tony Romo? And, what do you got to lose? And Parcells sat there and said, I'll tell you what you got to lose. You got the quarterback to lose if you play him before he's ready. So that's why I think the Giants are being wise here in not forcing Dart into the lineup prematurely. Now, he's taken some first-team reps, I think 1 or 2 each week so far, and they have a package of plans in the game plan for him, a package of plays. I don't think it's wrong to go ahead and put him out there in certain situations, maybe in the red zone where they were so horrible last week.
Right.
But Russell Wilson led the team in rushing last week. That's how bad this football team is.
Ed Werder, NFL insider on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Speaking of opportunities, Ed, boy, that was a missed opportunity for the Cowboys last Thursday night with the way Dak played and how everything played out with the drops and then the weather delay, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they had a great chance to, and they created the opportunity for themselves to go win a game to start their, the coaching tenure of Brian Schottenheimer with a win, on a big night in Philadelphia, which is a notoriously difficult place to play, on a night they're celebrating their Super Bowl championship. And the Cowboys have a chance, the ball in Dak's hands in the fourth quarter. He played extremely well throughout the game. He was fairly well protected. He showed, the mobility to avoid the rush and extend plays. and you just can't be failed by your best players. I mean, Jake Ferguson, dropping that ball for a potential touchdown, and then on the next play, Miles Sanders, a veteran who's on the active roster that day ahead of rookie Jaden Blue because the coaching staff wants a veteran presence, somebody they feel they can trust. He turns the football over on a fumble, the only turnover in the game. And then, CeeDee Lamb, career high 4 drops in the game. So yeah, you just can't have that if you're going to beat, a really good team in their building. But no doubt the Cowboys had a chance to win the game. And as much as they created it for themselves, they deprived themselves ultimately of winning.
Ed Werder on the show. Jadeveon Clowney, what's the latest on that?
He was in Dallas at the Star yesterday. He met with the coaches and with the front office, Jerry and Stephen Jones. Obviously, he's an unrestricted free agent. He's played for, I think, 5 teams in recent years. Very good year last year for a very bad, historically bad Carolina Panthers defense that allowed the most points in NFL history. But I think they're looking at him as somebody who can set the edge as a run defender. He's always been a very good two-way player, kind of like DeMarcus Lawrence, who they lost in the offseason to Seattle. So they haven't signed him yet. They let him leave the building. He's going to have other options. I think it just comes down to a matter of, whether the Cowboys are willing to pay what he wants. They have the second most cap space in all of football after the Micah Parsons trade. Just below New England, so they can pay whatever he wants. It's a matter of what they think is an equitable deal. I think there's no question he would upgrade their defensive end position.
Yeah, Ed, I'm still bitter over I know Derrick Henry put the ball on the ground last weekend, but I'm still bitter that whole thing was teed up 2 years ago for him. And I mean, he was like, I want to be here, and
right in Dallas,
yeah. And he and Dak evidently had connected. I'm sitting here going, I mean, it's served up to Jerry and Steven, and they're like, no, we're good. We'll go get Zeke, and he'll average 2.2 yards per carry. I mean, what is going on, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry had the greatest, season last year ever for a running back over 30 years old, finished second in the NFL to Saquon Barkley. Rushing had, a huge number of rushing touchdowns on a year where the Cowboys had the fewest rushing touchdowns. He would have been a significant acquisition for them. And he was pretty vocal about, hey, I train in Dallas in the offseason. I'd love, to talk to the Cowboys about doing a deal. And the fact that Jerry wasn't even open-minded enough to speak to Derrick Henry when he was aware that they of their running back situation and of Henry's potential interest in joining the Cowboys doesn't speak well of him as a general manager. And, I mean, I know they went into the offseason last year believing, hey, we're not paying the running back position. We just can't justify with the structure of our roster paying a running back at the top level. We did it with Ezekiel Elliott. We did it with Tony Pollard playing on the franchise tag. We're not going to pay a big salary to a running back. And so they took themselves out just based on, that philosophy and that decision. And then when Derrick Henry's running up and down the field on everybody, including them, at home in a one-sided Cowboys loss, Jerry insulted his coaching staff by saying, well, just because he's having that kind of success in Baltimore doesn't mean we would have been able to get that out of him.
What? Oh, it's just a clown show. All right. It's frustrating because I'm a fan of Dak Prescott. All right. Ed Werder, NFL Insider on the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, brought to you by the Wolf and Shepherd shoes at the Rogue Men's Store. So the LA Rams coaching staff, Houston Texans coaching staff, they're wearing Wolf and Shepherd shoes this year, and Matt Leinart and Rob Gronkowski. You can find them, Wolf and Shepherd shoes at the Rogue Men's Store, I-55 North in Jackson. Ed Werder with us on the show. I want to switch gears, Ed, and talk about a show that you go on, the Musers in Dallas.
Yeah, the ticket.
Yes. So that's where I kind of connected with you again and started listening to their podcast when you would come on. And this is pretty crazy. The house that I live in right now, Gordon Keefe's grandparents owned it. Now, is that wild or what?
That's connecting the dots. 3 degrees of separation or whatever they call it. Yeah, that's quite a coincidence.
All right, can I tell you this? So we live on a lake, and 7 or 8 years ago, I don't remember, this guy's walking on the lakeside, on the, like, right on the water. And I look out at I look out at my house. I'm like, I wonder what that guy's doing. So I walked down there and I talked to him. So I didn't know about the Musers at this time, Ed, and didn't realize that they had an unbelievable show and all this long running deal and so on. And you go on there, and so I talked to him. And years later, once I find you on the Musers, and then I have another friend who listens to you and so on. He practiced law out in Dallas. Long story short, I put it all together. And so I DM'd him, and we've gone back and forth. And he's like, yeah, that was me the day. And yes, I grew up going to summers and hanging out with my grandparents on the lake. Isn't that wild, Ed Werder?
That's crazy. And Gordo, for people who don't know, is an extremely talented, humorous guy who does a lot of impersonations. And he's a very big part of the ticket show, the Musers, throughout the course of the week. So, yeah, that's pretty amazing that you would run into somebody like that. But you know what? I went to Pebble Beach and played golf 2 years ago for the first time. And I'm getting ready to hit the ball for the first time on the first tee. And in the group right behind me is Bob Sturm, who is a prominent radio guy in town at the Fan. And, like, you travel all this way for this once-in-a-lifetime experience, and the guy behind you is somebody you actually know. How preposterous is that?
Unbelievable. So, for our listeners, the Musers is an awesome show. And do you go in there every week, Ed?
Yeah, I've done it. I got Peter King bequeathed me his spot when he retired. Peter and I worked together at CNN Sports Illustrated as my first TV job. He was a huge advocate and a great friend of mine. And when he retired and left that spot open, I wound up getting it. So I'm not going to say I replaced Peter King, but I'm working his time slot.
Love it. All right. Do Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones both do hits every week in the Dallas market? Ed?
They do. Jerry does twice a week. I believe he does Tuesdays and Fridays. And then, yes, Stephen also has an appearance he makes once a week.
Okay.
They're very prominent voices throughout the football season, which is obviously a unique setup in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, talk about how that doesn't happen in either every market or most markets, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, I think most, forget owners. I mean, owners don't regularly talk, and Jerry makes himself available after every home game and frequently stands outside the locker room and speaks to reporters after road games, but certainly after every regular season home game, Jerry makes himself available. You're actually choosing between going into the locker room and interviewing the players or going to the head coach's press conference down the hall. But yeah, it's unusual that an owner speaks, except like at owners' meetings, which happen a couple times, a year throughout the NFL. That's the only time those particular guys are available. And then a lot of general managers are like, hey, I'll talk in the off season, when we're signing players and putting our roster together. But once the season begins, it's not about the business side of football. It's about the players and the coaches. And so I'm going to defer to the coach on everything. He's the only one who's really going to speak publicly with any kind of regularity. So the fact that the Cowboys do it differently is really done to an extreme here.
How would you describe Jason Garrett as the head coach? Would you just describe him as a yes man, and that's why it worked as long as it did, Ed?
Well, I think, a lot of things. First of all, Jerry was, very familiar with the family because Jim Garrett, Jason's father, was a longtime scout. In fact, Jerry, I think, said, I've written a paycheck to a member of the Garrett family ever since I bought the franchise. And, he thought a lot of Jason as a play caller, kind of saw him, he was characterized as being Jerry's Tom Landry. And obviously he ultimately miscalculated. And I mean, I think Jason was a really smart guy. He didn't go out of his way to embrace the public or to take influential media members into his confidence so that he could win the benefit of the doubt when he really needed it. And ultimately, that probably cost him, but he lasted 9.5 years and never never got to won a divisional playoff game. And so Jerry devoted, a full decade to a guy who never met his or their expectations. But, I think there were certainly people who, even some of Jason Garrett's closest friends and former teammates, would encourage him to stand up to Jerry. But he really never did, at least not publicly, and maybe occasionally he did so behind the scenes. Maybe he did it in a way that was more like, hey, I'm just going to try and educate the front office so that they'll do the thing I want them to do. But Jason, internally, among his friends group, was criticized for wanting to be the Cowboys head coach more than he wanted to win.
Yes. Do you get the sense that Aikman, and I don't know if he and Garrett are close. I know they were teammates and they've known each other forever.
No, they are good friends. Yeah.
Okay. Do you get the sense, because Aikman was critical of Garrett at times. So do you get the sense he kind of eye-rolled the fact that Garrett was given as long as he was in Dallas, Ed?
I don't necessarily think that Troy objected to Jason getting as much time as Jerry gave him. I think there were times he was probably frustrated with the way the front office treated the head coach, his friend and former teammate Jason Garrett in the quarterback room. I think Troy's frustration was more with Jerry than it was with Jason. Although I'm not sure that if he had been the head coach, he would have handled himself in quite the same way that Garrett did. He was obviously allowed himself to be embarrassed in ways that, potentially cost Jason Garrett credibility publicly. Mm-hmm. But I think Jason's biggest thing was he just didn't win big enough. And too often he stood up there and basically alienated the fan base by suggesting, hey, what you saw isn't what really happened. And only those of us in the locker room, coaches and players, have a full understanding of what really occurred out there. You people just don't understand at the level we do. So, and he would never, there's certain words he wouldn't even use. Like, he'd never say, we're disappointed. And yet I don't think most coaches have a problem with expressing disappointment publicly in their teams when they don't perform to this expected standard.
How did Parcells and Jerry Jones coexist? Because I would have thought that from the jump, Parcells would have F-bombed him and said, get out of football ops decisions. How did they coexist as long as they did?
Overall, I think, Parcells really actually liked working with Jerry and respected him as a businessman. And that's what Jerry was devoting his time to, because they were trying to get the public funding and support for the new stadium Jerry envisioned, which he eventually built in Arlington. And, he needed Parcells' credibility to create that opportunity. And he needed Parcells to sort of purge the roster, which had become littered with players who not only weren't good enough to win, but had off the field issues that embarrassed the organization. So Parcells, redid the roster. Jerry was preoccupied for the most part with trying to get public funding for his stadium. And so that's why I think it worked as well as it did. And there were certainly times when, Parcells disagreed with, decisions Jerry made, like signing Terrell Owens, for example. Parcells wanted to bring back Keyshawn Johnson, who was, a player in New York who he drafted and trusted. And Jerry was unequivocal about, we're not bringing back Keyshawn Johnson. So your choices are either not signing a prominent player to replace Keyshawn Johnson, or accepting Terrell Owens and trying to make it work. And so Parcells recognized there was some value in having Terrell Owens if you had no other alternative. But obviously he didn't embrace the guy, never referred to him by name, called him the player all the time. And there were other disagreements, like the year that they had two, first round draft picks, and Parcells really, for his defense, wanted to draft Marcus Spears with the higher of the two first round picks, and everybody else in the organization was supporting drafting DeMarcus Ware because he was an edge rusher. There aren't many of those, or harder to find, and they felt like Marcus Spears, although he's one of a kind in that particular draft, big defensive ends who play in a 4-3 and are primarily setting the edge and defending the run, are not are not as valuable in the first round as a player who can, pressure the quarterback on a consistent basis. And, Parcells had misgivings about the fact that DeMarcus Ware played at Troy, which, he always liked big school players who saw the best competition. So there were disagreements like that, but they were ultimately able to resolve them for the most part.
All right. That was fun. Ed Werder, NFL Cowboys insider, joined us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Ed, we appreciate it. We'll talk next week, man.
Well, we better be talking about Brian Schottenheimer getting his first game ball to, symbolize his first NFL head coaching victory. Otherwise, it could be curtains for the Cowboys.
I agree. It is must win in week 2. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Bo. See you later.
Ed Werder on the Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by Pearl River Resort and the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. It is the Timeout Lounge inside the Golden Moon Casino on the property of Pearl River Resort. Show is also presented by Cover Source Solutions. Cover Source Solutions. HVAC, air conditioning, and plumbing repair. Cover Source Solutions. New construction and existing. CoverSourceSolutions.com. Locally owned, Mississippi grown, with offices in Brandon and Ridgeland. Call Cover Source Solutions today. CoverSourceSolutions.com. Air conditioning, HVAC, and plumbing. Cover Source Solutions. Okay, so that makes sense on that timeline with Bill Parcells. Jerry and Steven were, locked in to trying to get the new stadium built. And so Parcells, I guess, out of all the coaches post Jimmy Johnson, had the most power and say with football decisions for the most part during that time. Can you believe Jason Garrett was the Cowboys coach for 10 years? He also hired Chan Gailey and Dave Campo. Yeah, I'm not making that up. We are the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, brought to you by the Men's Clinic in Madison. So if you're low testosterone, lost your sex drive, low energy, call them today. The Men's Clinic in Madison, the Men's Clinic in Brandon. Visit their website, themanthing.com. Dr. Mike Manning and Dr. Cliff Adams will help you through the aging process. The Men's Clinic in Madison and Brandon.